now my honor to introduce somebody that really doesn't need any introduction, our next speaker, Senator Amy Klobuchar. She has a long history of being a leader for Minnesota, and I'm sure that most of you know that she was the first woman senator to represent our state in the U.S. Senate. Prior to that, she ran the largest prosecutor's office in Minnesota for 8 years. She is currently a member of the Agriculture Committee, the Justice and Joint Economic Committee to the Senate, and she does a lot of really important work for our state in those roles. In 2015, she was appointed chair of the Senate Democratic Steering and Outreach Committee. And the thing that I would say about Senator Klobuchar that makes her really unique is she has a special ability to reach across the aisle and get things done. She is one of the few people I know in the Senate or in any political office that is extremely popular with people regardless of their political affiliation. And that's because she really truly cares about getting things done for people and businesses here in the state of Minnesota and across the United States. So with that, Senator Klobuchar.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad that this worked out. As you know, I think our people are kind of attuned to what's happened. I think you also know we have areas like the Iron Range that are having some severe economic problems. We have the President's Chief of Staff going up there with us on Tuesday. So it's not like everything's perfect. We've got people that are still struggling to make ends meet, even when they're working to pay for college and other things, and that does affect our economy. So I'm not saying everything is rosy, but clearly our state is doing better than the rest of the country.
Then you look at the labor market. The labor market's performance has also been very impressive. The state, we've talked about it a little bit already, but the state has added about 80,000 jobs since it surpassed its pre-recession peak 2 years ago.
The economy does look and feel great, and for some feel even better than maybe the news media is reporting, but there are certain communities here in this region and statewide that are being left behind, and that's something that we think a lot about. I wake up every day thinking about at the Met Council, and I know that the leaders at the state and local level are focused on as well.
You look at the what economists call the economic miracle countries post-World War II, Japan, South Korea, China, India, Poland today, critical ingredient, not the only, but a critical ingredient in every one was education, quality of the workforce. You're living in one of the best economies today, and all this optimism today is because we have one of the best educated workforces, one of the hardest working workforces in the country.
For anyone up here? If so, just raise a hand and we'll come around. Sure.
I'm just wondering, with the high number of job openings that are staying vacant, do you see any movement of those companies moving those jobs outside of Minnesota, or at least the expansion that, the vacant positions, opening up facilities in other states or other locations to find employees, to find labor?
I could probably just answer it with a few. DigiKey in Thief River Falls is a good example of somebody who for years has been dealing with this. Outstate companies have been dealing with this longer than the metro. As the unemployment has dropped, more metro companies are now dealing with it. But they're trying everything they can with recruiting, retention, all sorts of things. They have a really nice, diverse workforce up there. They're still finding a way to do it, but we are seeing more and more companies getting to this point where they're like, geez, what can we do? That is why what Senator Klobuchar said about immigration reform is very important in Minnesota. Germany is doing some things with Syrian refugees where they're making sure that as they come in, they're actually being sent through an application process for jobs, and they're trying to get them into job openings as soon as they can, not only to feed their growing unemployment or employment problem with a lower unemployment rate too, but also then to try to keep individuals from becoming troubled and unable to get a job and become poor and maybe go into crime. So there are a lot of things that I think we should be thinking about here. And our immigration in Minnesota is different than the rest of the country. That's one of our challenges. We're a land of migrants and refugees, not a lot of Mexican immigrants here. And so one of the issues that we need to deal with is what do we do with folks who have migrated here from other countries, whether they're refugees or migrants, how do we get them into the workforce? How do we get them educated? How do we help them find the right jobs? And so there are a lot of things that people are doing to try to deal with that, to keep businesses from relocating to other places. And every business we talk with does not want to have to expand outside of Minnesota. They want to try to keep people here. The number one reason is the work ethic and the culture, and just the fact that if you can keep people here, it's actually more efficient and more productive and more affordable to have a workforce in Minnesota than in other states.
I was just going to add, I mean, this is really a national phenomenon. The mismatch of the need for labor and the qualifications. So it's not just here in Minnesota. So, but there is a concern of how do you maintain this incredible economy we have. And in the short run, it's difficult. Each firm has to find its way, and immigration, I think, is very important, finding workers all over the world. I mean, it's become more of an international economy, if you will. So you really need, economists don't like political borders. We like trade of ideas and peoples, et cetera. That's what keeps economies strong. So moving in that direction, as the senator is trying to do, I think is very positive, not just for Minnesota, but for the country. Long term, you've got to educate your kids. And education is not just formal. There's a lot of education that goes on within industries, within businesses. There's a lot of on-the-job education, and we've got to help promote that as much as we can, because that's a critical part of getting this mismatch solved. But again, it's a national phenomenon, so I'm not as concerned about Minnesota losing. I am concerned about this country, though.
Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Speaking about the need of the workforce, I just want to say that Minnesota has an asset that has not been utilized. The availability of foreign trained medical professionals that are in this country, especially medical doctors, who have been trained, passed the medical exams, and are not getting into medical residency. I work with a program, we've been working with this program for 10 years, and the biggest obstacle is medical residency. They're available to work in the rural area where there's medical shortage of physicians, and any area actually, but they're not getting in. And we have a program now, we're working with the Department of Health, and we're trying to actually get to develop a funding initiative to pay for additional residency slots. But it's an opportunity that Minnesota should seize, and anybody would like to work with us to expand this funding, I will really be available. My name is Wilhelmina Holder, and I can be reached at WISE, Women's Initiative for Self-Empowerment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. And one question here, too? Okay.
So Dell has asked all of the questions that I actually wanted to ask. In the state, the unemployment rate of peoples of color is really high. So with all those good things, good stuff that you guys have been talking about, can any one of you or all of you just comment a little bit about what Dell was talking about with influx, with the immigrants, with having a lot of immigrants here, and we're struggling, we're talking about workforce development, especially in the next 5 years. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the baby boomers. Can you comment a little bit on what do you think will be some good things that we need to do in the state for us to, take care of these changes of the demographic changes?
Okay.
Yeah, I can start, and maybe another panelist can jump in. To put a fine point on your question, today, the region, the Twin Cities region, the 7-county region, 20% of the people who live here are people of color. In 25 years or 30 years, that number is going to double. It's going to be 40%. So it's why it's such a significant issue for us as a region to work through and understand, because again, we'll move forward and potentially leave a whole entire population of our community behind. I think of it in a couple different ways. I think of it from an HR perspective, and we're a large employer at the Metropolitan Council of over 4,200 people, and are there barriers that we have in place in our terms of our outreach and recruitment efforts in the culture of inclusivity? Do we have that kind of culture where people want to come and work and stay working for us and then for state government in general? And I actually come from a cabinet meeting this morning where we put the numbers on a PowerPoint of who works where in which agencies and where they are today and how are we going to meet that future demand and continue to have a workforce that reflects the region and then also the state. And it takes that type of intentionality at a leadership level, as well as then getting into the human relations, the HR practices of the everyday agencies from our perspective. And then I also think it's important to do pilot projects, which we're a big fan of at Metro Transit, at Met Council, of really connecting with different workforce opportunities for people in the community that wouldn't have possibly heard about. It's very easy to become a bus mechanic. It's really easy to figure out how to work at a wastewater facility treatment plant if you're trained properly and kind of have that opportunity. But it's also incumbent upon us as employers to do that proactive, intentional outreach.
Anything to add?
There are also a lot of, there's so many organizations here, Junior Achievement, one of them, and other organizations, former Minneapolis Mayor R.T. Ryback with Generation Next. It really does come back to education. And our disparity with the achievement gap in Minneapolis public schools is still atrocious, and yet there are so many people working on it. And so I think that there are a lot of good things underway. I'm optimistic that we'll see progress for the reasons that you just explained, and also our labor shortage. But it's still a challenge, and I don't think anybody has a magic answer at this point.
Can I just make one more point, which is I've been at dozens of meetings since starting this job in last year where business leaders, civic leaders, academic leaders, this item is on almost every agenda of those meetings. And I think that's a tribute to the fact that our region is thinking about this issue and is planning for it and is taking it seriously. So if I have a bit of optimism to shed on the subject, it's I think we're heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you have any more questions, save them up because we're going to have plenty of other time left to go over some questions too. Dale, you've reported on small business success stories. What are some small business?
Minnesota provides about 75% of domestic steel production. And when profit margins start to crunch like this, you're going to start to see idling and slowing of plants up on the Iron Range. And that's what the news has brought the last 8 months. By my count, about 2,000 workers are being affected or have been affected this year. Last year, the iron ore companies employed only about 4,400 of these jobs. So we're talking about half of this industry is currently being affected. And not only that, but you have the services, the providing services to the industry too, the utilities, the transportation, and the manufacturing up there is also really struggling.
You educate, you provide a good K through 12, well, I'll talk about early ed and higher ed. That's probably the best you can do to prepare yourself for a world economy that virtually changes every day. It's replacing No Child Left Behind, and it's called Every Student Succeeds Act. In the No Child Left Behind Act, they had virtually zero on early childhood education. In this new act, there's a significant portion pointing to the importance of early childhood education beginning as early as possible, and what Congress and Washington were starting to listen to, not economists like me, but the neuroscientists. And the neuroscientists have found that by age 3, 80% of your brain was developed. At 1 week, they're showing that a child at 1 week old can distinguish different languages. They do this through brain imaging. So this child at a very early age is starting to develop that brain, and if that child's in a stressful environment, and I want you to equate stress and poverty, that brain doesn't develop properly by age 3. There's a famous study of the Romanian orphans, and if you recall, they had very little adult interaction, called it extreme neglect. By age 3, the images of that brain were a third smaller than what a normal brain would be. So the neuroscientists know, and there's no debate on this, those, I call them the foundation years, from prenatal to 3 are critical years, and we way underinvest in this country. So it was very encouraging to see this new legislation say, the federal government is going to encourage investments in high quality early education as early as possible, focusing on the parent and the parent choosing what is good for that child, what they think is good for that child. This is very much what we're doing here in Minnesota. And I talked about the business community. The business community has led this a number of years ago, the Minnesota Early Learning Foundation, raising money privately to provide early learning scholarships to our most vulnerable kids. And we did a pilot like that in St. Paul. 650 families got these early learning scholarships. We tracked the children, compare it to kids that didn't, and we're getting incredible results there. Because of that, we got Race to the Top money to replicate it, and the state of Minnesota gave us additional money, and we now serve what we call 4 transformation zones. St. Paul, Frogtown area in St. Paul, Northside, Minneapolis, White Earth Reservation, and Itasca County, a very low-income outstate area. And parents are parents. We're finding these kind of programs where you empower the parents and you get them at the high-quality program, and you start as early as prenatal, so the child's more likely to be born full weight, full term. 40-year studies, not just my studies, James Heckman, Nobel laureate, University of Chicago, 40-year studies show incredible results 40 years later. The kids who are in these kind of programs, they graduate high school, they get jobs, they pay taxes, they start families, they stay off welfare, crime rate goes way down. In the state of Minnesota, this is, I think, our biggest challenge. Economically, I'm going to say, state of Minnesota, we have one of, if not the largest, one of the largest achievement gaps in the country. Our children of color are start school way behind, and it extends all the way through high school. And when they start way behind, on average, they don't catch up. And when they start way behind, we know K through 12 is going to have problems, because all the neuroscientists are telling us we're starting too late. So I think our big challenge is to make sure that we provide funding so that every child born into poverty in this state, and I don't care where they're born, and I don't care what color they are, what religion they are, every child born into poverty in this state has access to high-quality early education, starting as early as prenatal, because it's as much as health as it is education. And I think the challenge is to provide that funding. We can easily afford it. The state produces something like $300 billion a year in gross state product. Our program taken to scale would be about $300 million a year. And I'm telling you, when we looked at these 40-year longitudinal studies and we looked at the public return on that investment, and then we got a bunch of bankers here, 18% inflation adjusted. I argued 15 years ago, it is the best public investment we can make. Don't get me started on the Viking Stadium, guys. It is the best public investment we can make, and it's unconscionable that we're not fully funding that now. That's the challenge. This is going to be our future workforce. In Detroit, and I said this at the White House, 75% of the children in the Detroit public schools do not graduate high school or do not graduate on time. I said it to the White House people. I said, I don't care how much money you give to General Motors. If you don't educate these kids, you're going to have a third world economy 15, 20 years from now. So you want sustainable economic growth, you want real economic development, that's what you invest in. And fortunately, Minnesota, because of the business community, is made the statement, and we've got these results, that this is working, and we're hoping over the next few years to take it to scale and eventually get this fully funded.
What is the next step then? How do we get this?
Well, fortunately, the St. Paul gave us $60 million over the next 4 years, close to $250 million. We're serving about 10% of our children. We're going to get up to about 30%. The next step is to double down and eventually provide permanent funding for this program. The cost savings in healthcare, in special ed, in workforce development, in productivity, you name it, you can't beat it.
Anyone else? Anything to add on education? So we'll just kind of look overall here. We looked at the 5-year picture. We'll look at the 10-year picture now, and we look at Minnesota's economy, guys. When you see what's in place now, and Art, I know you guys said it's hard to say 10 years and predict which companies are going to be doing well, and which, I mean, it's an inexact science, so we get that. But when you look at what's in place now in the state of Minnesota and the state we're at now, would you give the Minnesota economy in 10 years a thumbs up or a thumbs down? We'll just kind of go down the list, Adam. I guess we'll start with you.
I'd give it a thumbs up, and certainly, I'm an optimist at heart. That's kind of my personal nature. That's how I get through every day. And so, when I think about, kind of to even answer the question before about why be optimistic about Minnesota, why be optimistic about our future, and I think it's incumbent upon it's embodied rather by the group here, by others and business leaders around the state, other leaders, state leaders, legislative leaders, and the like, who I think have identified what some of the challenges really are, have fixed some of the challenges we've been working through, identified what it is we need to focus on now, and that's what I'm really excited about, because I think in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to be on the national stage for a number of reasons. We're going to try to get better at telling our story as a region. We're going to get better at talking about recruitment and retention of talent. We're going to continue to invest into things like early childhood education and hopefully fix our infrastructure and think about the things that we haven't done as well. But we're really good at diagnosing the problem, but we're also good, I think, at holding ourselves to a standard of saying we are exceptional.
Going to college than ever before. I think we have to provide more scholarship money for lower income kids so all kids could have access. But if you have to work a second job or 2-3 years down the road, you get a medical degree, you got to pay back a loan, I don't think that's our big problem. I think our big problem is too many kids don't graduate high school and don't have the opportunity to go to college. I think most people, when they have the opportunity to go to college and we keep them in college, they're going to do very well. The data, again, is pretty clear there. The education premium is really high. So I think, unfortunately, I think that's the wrong debate. I think there's not much government can do about the cost of education. It would be nice. We've been looking at this for many years, is to try to get more productivity out of education. The fact is, it's very labor intensive. A lot of interaction with other students and professors somehow, just in the young years, creates a lot of learning. So you need that environment, and it's expensive. So I don't see an easy answer to the cost, but again, I think the return is so high that we should be able, as a community, to make sure that every child who wants to go has access to higher education or a 2-year. We got to encourage our kids to again, learn how to learn and continue their education as long as possible. The return is there. Yes, it's costly, but the return is there.
And that's another thing that the U has to be conscious about, is how does its return on investment compare with other universities? And I think the administration in Washington has tried to do something more where prospective students can look at ROI based on colleges and see, okay, if I go here, what are my chances of getting a job that pays this much versus if I go here, how much can I get paid right out of college? And you know, we've heard stories where so many kids in recent years have graduated and they haven't been able to find jobs because of the recession, or the jobs they found didn't pay enough to offset their student loans. So ROI for universities of all sizes is going to become much more important in the next few years, because there are universities now that are starting to market their ROIs, and you know, they've been measuring them for a few years.
I think it's an important question to ask and get to the bottom of, and particularly as it relates to the decisions that young people are going to make about where they're going to live and transportation costs and other parts of their family budget. So you think about somebody who's 22, 23 years old out of college and already has a mortgage payment of a school loan essentially, and then has to figure out if they can qualify to buy a house or how. So it's going to have major impacts into renting versus owning property. It's going to have major impacts as to whether families have 1 car or 2 cars and things of that nature. So that's the thing that I'm thinking about from a planning agency standpoint.
Any other questions? Okay. Any last thoughts from anyone?
I'll put a plug in for government policy. The uncertainty at the federal level has been minimizing, fortunately, for the past few years. This is helping to contribute to growth and forecast. I think this will be the first year, 2015, will be the first year that GDP will actually have a positive contribution from government. The other thing I'd add is at the state level, Minnesota's finances are in good shape right now. I was part of the team that put together the $1.9 billion balance that we came out with last week, and things just the underlying health of state finances are really good. And I would say there's been a push towards savings. And at the state level, we balance our budgets. And right now, Minnesota's budget reserve, as of last week, has reached record highs. It's what we hope, what the state hopes this will create is some predictability from the business community on when the next recession hits, and it will, that there'll be some predictability on what government's going to do and how it's going to react. I read a stat the other day that right now this expansion is longer than 29 out of the 33 expansions since the mid-1850s. So we're getting there. It's coming and it'll happen, but unfortunately we're not very good at predicting when.
I just want to say another obvious reason for optimism is our rainy day fund. It was created many, many years ago, and now we're required, when we have a surplus, to build that rainy day fund. And that means you can be a lot more confident when we do get to the next recession that we're going to be able to weather it a lot better. And so this state and our bond rating is looking very good to the market right now, and it's a credit to the way this government is managed. And man.
I'm still very, very optimistic. I do have to bring up one thing, and that's what we refer to as wealth migration. And we're concerned about how many individuals who used to maybe stay here and be the Dayton family of the past and build Daytons and Target, how many of them are now moving because of our tax structure in Minnesota. We're hearing about it. We're going to start trying to actually formally measure it to see if it's as real as what we're hearing about. But that combined with our loss of our ability to take companies that have great ideas and fund them with seed stage and venture capital and IPOs. Art mentioned how things were from the 50s and 60s. We also were one of the hottest, if not the hottest, penny stock markets in the United States. We are considered to be the first place that actually had a venture capital firm with Buddy Rolnick, not Rolnick, Buddy, yes. And so we have a rich history of being able to back early stage companies that faded in about the year 2000. So that's something where we have to watch that and see what we can do to make sure that we keep people here who've built companies, they've built wealth. How can we make sure we keep them here and encourage them to also back our earlier stage companies so that we can see them grow up into like a Buffalo Wild Wings or a Medtronic?
Adam, any final?
I don't have that much to add. It's been a great panel to learn from the gentleman up here and to the questions we've received. It's a great time to be in this region and a great time to be living here, working here, raising a family here, and I'm excited about the future. I think it's very bright.
Can we get a hand for our panelists today? Just one last time, Adam Dunnick of the Met Council, Dale Kirshner of Twin Cities Business, Art Rolnick, Humphrey School, and Matt Shepner with Minnesota Management Budget. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And thank you to Wells Fargo, thank you to USA Today, and thank you, of course, to KARE 11 too, and to all of you for coming and participating. Love the questions, love the feedback, even loved the couple of laughs that I got. That was nice. And then, oh yeah, we have people streaming live too on KARE 11 and on USA Today, so thanks for watching there. And just want to say too, please, when you get up in the morning, KARE 11 Sunrise. 5 to 7 every morning. Hey, you don't have any excuse either. When you go out on the road, we've got this great app. It's updated. You can watch the newscast live, so there's no excuses, you guys. I'm Corey Heppola. You can follow me on Twitter at Corey Heppola. So thank you all for coming.